Hello. So in our last sessions, we have seen how to use absolute and relative referencing. We have also checked on how to utilize the formula bar. The absolute referencing and the relative referencing is the most important concept because every time you will apply a formula which will be on a series of rows or a set of columns, you will need to ensure that whatever needs to be referenced as absolute gets referenced as absolute, and if you're pasting it across, then whatever needs to dynamically change gets changed, and you use relative referencing over here. So we want to apply this concept over here. So I've got the tax rate over here in this column N1, and the sales is over here. So we're going to calculate tax for each of the item that is applicable based on this tax rate, and then we're going to get the total price. So if you have to calculate the tax based on the tax rate, then the tax rate is over here, and since this is always going to be based on the cell number N1, we're going to hard pass this. So I'm going to say $N, $N1. Now the second part of it is that I want the sales price to be based on whatever is there in column I2 or the column I. So we're going to indicate that. And now I've gotten it correct for the first row. Now since my sales is always in column I can also do an absolute referencing over here. But for each of the item, my rows will keep changing as I will copy this formula in the subsequent rows. When I am copying this formula in row number 3, it should refer to I3. When I copy it in column row number 4, it should refer to row number 4, so that you get the tax based on whatever is the sales against that item. That is why this part of it is left as relative. And now let me copy this formula all across, and as you can see over here, it has calculated based on this tax rate and the sales figures that are in this column. Now I want this to be number format, which is to the level of 2 decimals, so you can just set the format over here, and there you go. So I've got the tax now, and I want the total price, total amount due. Now total amount due is whatever is the sales plus tax. So it's when I am on this particular row, then it is based on whatever is there in I and whatever is there in J2. Similarly, when I go to I3, it is based on I3 and J3. So what in this case is that it is again relative referencing. The columns can be set to, so this is coming as date format for some reason. We can just change it to number format up front. So now this is based on relative referencing. I can change, I can refer to the column as absolute because that's going to remain always based on I, column I and J. So that's what we did. And now let's copy it across. And there you go. You can see now the total amount due is based on whatever is there in the value in I2 and J2. When it is for column row number 3, it is based on I3 and row 3. So there you go. Now that's the concept of absolute referencing and relative referencing. When we wanted to have both the rows and columns absolute, we used it as an absolute address $N, $1. When we only wanted the column to be absolute, we used it as $I2. And whereas when I wanted two columns to be hard passed but rows to be relative, we didn't append dollar to it. So this is how we apply absolute and relative referencing on formulas which work on tables or on a set of range. This concept is extremely important, so practice it well. And in the next session, what we're going to cover is we're going to look at string functions. We have to practice this concept of how to utilize absolute and relative referencing, and then how to copy the formulas across. See you in the next session to cover the date and string functions. Practice this concept using the workbook that has been provided. Thank you.